All right, so chapter 3 closure, walkthrough. I'm walking through each of these questions. As I walk through these, if you already know the answer to this question, feel free to skip ahead in the video. Feel free to rewind it, right? Just putting this together so that you can be as prepared as possible for your test on Wednesday, right? So starting out, first thing is just some brief definitions or some brief terminology. We have algebra tiles. We want to determine what is x plus x equivalent to. If we're adding, right, x plus x, we get 2x, right? We're just going to have two x's, all right? Think of it as perimeter, right? Whereas if we're multiplying, we want to figure out what the area is, right? So we're going to take our sides and multiply those together. So x times x is going to give us x squared, right? So when we're multiplying, we deal with our exponents. If we're adding, all we deal with is our coefficients, right? All right, looking at number 2. All right, so we have a polynomial given, negative 2x squared plus 3. And it wants us to know how many terms there are. So a couple definitions off to the right here. Terms are separated by addition or subtraction, right? So we have, looks like we have a term here and a term here, and we're adding those terms together. So we have 2 terms in total, all right? The constant term is the term rather, without a variable, okay? So our constant term here is just 3. So constant are just going to be just plain old numbers, okay? Plain old numbers. And in our leading coefficient, I have a definition over here as well. So in order to find a leading coefficient, we want to first figure out what is our highest exponent. In this case, our highest exponent is 2. And then we want to know what is the number right in front. And that number is what we call our leading coefficient, right? So in this example, our leading coefficient is negative 2, right? Okay, continuing on, right? It says we want to fully simplify these expressions using only positive exponents. Right? Let's say we get to a test and we have no idea where to start. Remember, exponents are just repeated multiplications. So let me write that over here. Exponents are repeated multiplication. Okay. Exponents are just repeated multiplication. So what we can do here is if we start on the letter A, we can write this out, right? So we have 2 times x. Y to the 5th power is y, 5 y's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, times 4. X squared is just 2 x's, right? X times x. And then y times y, right? So some of you might be able to skip this intermediate step, right? But if you get stuck, remember, just write it all out. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go through and tally what do you have, right? So first, let's combine. We have the 2 and the 4. We can combine that. That's going to give us 8. Then we have our x's, right? We have 1x here, 2x, 3x. So that gives us x to the 3rd. And then we combine our y's, right? Which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 2. So then we get y to the 7th, right? Notice here we multiply our coefficients, right? So we multiply 2 and 4. We don't add those. But then we add the exponents, all right? Looking at letter B, same thing, right? This is quotient rule. So we can expand this out. So we can write this as 9x divided by 3 times x times x 4 times, right? And in here we can cancel out. So if we have 1 on top, we can cancel it out with 1 on the bottom, right? Notice there's no more x's up top, so we're done. But you have to remember we have to simplify this fraction here, right? So 9 over 3 simplifies to just 3. So then our 3 is on top, right? And then we still have these 3 x's on the bottom. So it becomes x to the 3rd power. And we're done. All right, continuing on. Number 4. All right, so it says fill in the algebra tiles. Okay, so the algebra tiles are on the outside. Find the area. All right, so remember these larger squares we said were x squared, right? So these are both going to be x squared, right? These little ones are just x, right? And again, we're doing x times 1, which gives us 1x. We're doing x times 1, which gives us that x right there. And then over here, in these little boxes, we're doing -1 times -1, which gives us -1. You can repeat that process 4 times. And then over here, we're doing, use a different color here. We're doing -1 times x. which is negative x, right? And they'll span out over there, right? Now, factor form is the stuff that we're multiplying, right? So factor form is going to be this x plus 1, 2x, minus 4. Right? And then standard form is everything. So, okay, let's write this, right? So let me get you some. So factor form, terms outside. So factor form here, the terms outside of the box, in this case, right? Standard form is the thing, the terms added together, ensuring that we combine like terms. Okay, so here we go, right? Right in our factor form out, we have 2x squared. Okay, we have these 2x squareds here, right? Then we have 4, so then we have minus 4x plus 2x minus 4, right? So I just add up all of these, right? So I have 2 positive 2x's here, 4 negative x's here. So then when I go through and combine all of them, I get my final answer is 2x squared minus 2x minus 4. That right there is my answer. Okay. All right, so that's algebra tiles. Now let's work our way down to box. All right, so here we need to fill in the missing dimensions. Then we need to write it in factor form and standard form. Okay, so first thing we need to realize is, okay, so what 2 things do I need to multiply here to get a 4 up here, right? And I need to get a 12 here. Right? So if let's start with the 12x, right? So 3, I know I have a 3x. So if 3x times what gives me 12x? Okay, well, that's just 4. Right, so 3 times 4 gives me 12x. And then I got to go up here. I got to say, okay, so what 2 things do I need to multiply to get 4? I'm doing 4 times something gives me 4. Well, that's 4 times 1. All right. So now I can write my factor form out over here if I would like. Right? So I have 3x plus 1 times 2x plus 4. Okay. Then I go through it. I can go ahead and fill in the rest of my box, right? So now to fill out this box here, I know I need to do 3x times 2x, which is going to give me 6x squared. Here I need to do, for this box, rather, I need to do 2x times 1, which is going to just give me 2x. Then I need to write it all out, right? Standard form, again, we add up the inside. So my standard form is going to be 6x squared. I can combine here, plus 14x, plus 4, and I'm finished. All right, continuing on, because I use box up here, down here I'm going to use distributive property. I'm going to draw my arrows. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this 3x. I'm going to distribute that to the x. So it gives me 3x squared. I'm going to take the 3x, I'm going to distribute it to the 5. That's going to give me positive 5x. Then I'm going to do negative 2 times x, which is going to give me negative 2x. I'm going to do negative 2 times 5, which is going to give me a negative 10. Okay. As I go through, I can say 3x squared. Combine here, minus 3x minus 10. All right. And there's my answer there. Now, again, notice you only use box if we're multiplying. Okay, we're not adding or subtracting here, so we use box. All right, I can also use box here if I would like, so I can go through and draw my box. Whoops. Go through and draw my box. Okay. All right, so this is another way for us to do it. We're going to have 3x minus 2 over here, x plus 5 over here. Go through 3x squared, 15x. Oops, this should be a 15, so let me go back up here. I apologize. I made a mistake up here. When I did 3x times 5, that should give me 15x. I forgot my x there, so that should be 15, which makes that 13. Or which makes that, yeah, 13x, okay. My mistake. So catch that there again. 3x times 5 gives me 15x, 13x down here, okay. Down here, negative 2 gives me negative 2x, gives me negative 10. All right, and then again, go through combine like terms, and you get the exact same thing that's in the box. All right, so now over here, again, distribute, right? 3 times 4 gives me 12x minus 15. Okay. All right, continuing on. Now we're doing addition and subtraction. All right, subtraction is pretty straightforward. This is where we need to remember to put our 1 out here and make sure we distribute that 1 to both terms. So I have 2x plus 10 minus 5x plus 4. Then we go through and combine like terms, right? So 2x minus 5x gives us negative 3x. 10 plus 4 gives me 14. There's your answer there. And then finding our sum, all right, we don't have to distribute anything here. We can just go through and combine like terms. So I have 3x squared plus 10x, which is 13x squared. I have 4x minus 1x, which is positive 3x. I have negative 5 minus 10, which is negative 15. Okay, again, when we're adding, all we need to do is combine like terms. I'm going to put this over here so that we know. Do not use box method. Do not multiply. Okay. Do not use box, do not multiply. All right, down here, function notation. All right, the way I like to remember this is here, right? I'm going to have f input equals output. Right? So if I give you the input, I'm looking for the output. If I give you the output, I'm looking for the input. All right. So here I give you, what do I give you? Well, I'll give you the input, right? I tell you the input is 7, so I need you to tell me what is your output. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go f of 7 equals 4 times 7 plus 3. When I do that, I get 4 times 7 is 28. 28 plus 3 is 31. 31. Now notice over here is different. It says find x, which means you need to solve an equation for x. And I give you your output. Right, so your output here is 7. So I know 7 is going to be equal to 4x plus 3. Subtract 3 from both sides. Subtract 3 from both sides. We get 4 equals 4x. Divide by 4. Divide by 4. X is equal to 1. All right. That's number 9. Number 10. It says solve an equation. It says solve for y, right? So now we're going to solve for y. This is one of those literal equations. So I need to get rid of everything that's not y. So I'm going to simply just add 4x to the other side. All right. Now, again, I can't combine those two, right? So I'm just going to write it as y equals 4x minus 5. Or you can write it as negative 5 plus 4x. Right? Either one works. Now it says write down your y-intercept. Okay, so remember we're in a slope-intercept form, so we have y equals mx plus b, right? B is your y-intercept, right? Notice b is your constant term. B doesn't have a variable, okay? So in this example, our constant term is negative 5. That's our y-intercept. Your slope is the m value, the number that's in front of x. So in this case, our slope would be 4. Okay. Continuing on. All right, we have Fred. Fred solved the equation wrong. It tells us that Fred made an error between step 1 and step 2. Right? So let's see what could have happened. So it looks like here, all right, he looks like he distributed correctly. Then what happened? Right about here, right? When he combined like terms, he said negative 42 plus 4 gave him 46, right? But we know that's not true, okay? So what we'll do is we'll go back down here and we'll solve this. All right, so we'll have 24x minus 56 equals negative 6x minus 42 plus 4, right? Now, if you didn't know where to start, what I would do is I would just solve the equation how you would normally solve it and figure out where his work went wrong, all right? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through my combine like terms, all right? So now we know he made a mistake, so we gotta make sure we combine like terms correctly. All right, equals negative 6x minus 38. Right, then it looks like in step 3, he got all of his variables onto one side. So we know this is going to be 30x because we add 6x to both sides. Right? Then we're going to go through and we're going to add 56 to both sides. All right, so we get negative 36 plus 56, which is, what is that, 20, positive 20. Then we divide by 30, divide by 30. All right, so we get x is equal to 20 over 30, or 2/3. Okay. Now you're probably wondering, how did I get 2/3? So let me pull Desmos up over here and show you. Okay. So I get Desmos as soon as it loads, right? We get an answer of x equals, or we get 20 over 30. Right? And you want to simplify that. So if you go to Desmos right over here, click this button right beside the 1, it gives you the decimal of 2/3. Okay, so that's how you can simplify it. All right. Continuing on to number 12, right? It says find the equation of the line given. All right. Again, the equation of the line, we know we're going to write it as y equals mx plus b. All right. So what we need to do is we need to go through, we need to figure out what is my slope, what is my y-intercept. So let's start by finding a pattern. Right? We increase by 1 on our x. We decrease by 3 in our y. So our slope here is change in y, which is negative 3 over 1. In our b term, we can work backwards, right? So we start at 1. If we subtract 1, we get back to 0, which means we need to add 3, which means we start at 20, 21. Okay? So in order to find where your graph starts, you always need to figure out where is my line, or what is my table. Where in my table does x equals 0? That's my starting point. So in this case, my starting point is 1. So I get y equals negative 3x plus 21. So that's how that works, right? So again, first thing you need to do, find your slope, right? So in this case, figure out what is your pattern in your table. Second step, work backwards. If 0 is not given to you, you have to work backwards to 0. That's how you can find that out there. Right. Last couple here, 2 more, I want to say, 3 more, 4 more. Right. It says which equation is equivalent, which expression is equivalent to x squared plus 2x, or x squared plus 2 times x plus 5. Here, let's use box. Okay. So again, we're multiplying here. How do we know we're multiplying? Well, because there's not a sign. There's not a sign right there, right? So we know we're multiplying, not addition or subtraction sign. There's not an addition or subtraction sign. So how we can go through, we can draw out our box. Right, so we're going to have x squared 2x 5, right? Here we get x to the 3rd power. We get 5x squared. We get 2x. And we get 10, right? Now, we don't have to do anything else, right? We can go through a process of elimination. We know it's not a because we have more than 2 terms. We know it's not b because we can't combine those. Those aren't like terms. So now it's c or d, right? We have a 5x squared, which corresponds down here to d, right? So d will be our final answer. Okay. Looking at number 14, right? It says solve for r, right? Which means you need to get r by itself. So we'll rewrite the equation over here. We have ar squared equals 2 pi. If I'm solving for r, I need to get rid of everything that's not a. All right, so let's go ahead and divide both sides by a. Divide both sides by a. We get r squared equals 2 pi over a. And the last thing I need to do is take a square root. Take a square root. So we get r is equal to 2 pi divided by a. The whole thing square rooted. So that's my answer there. Okay. All right, now it says an equation is shown, g of x equals 4x minus 5. It says show all the options, all the points that are contained on the graph of the equation. So let me get Desmos pulled up here again. Okay. So for this one, all I'm going to do is I'm going to start by typing in my equation, y equals 4x minus 5. Right. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to graph all of my points, right? So I know I see 0, 5, 0, negative 5. Okay, that point is on my line. 0, 4. That point is not on my line. 1/4, comma, negative 1. That point is not on my line. Then I have 1/2, comma, negative 3. Negative 3, right? That point is on my line. So, okay. So, again, we start by graphing our first equation. Then we graph all of our points, right? So, it looks like 0, negative 5 is on my point, is on there. As well as that last one. All right. Now, it does say show work, right? But I will let you slide by just plugging it into Desmos and making sure you select the correct answer on the left-hand side. All right. Okay, I think we can get rid of the Desmos here. All right. Last one, determine the equation of the line. Right, so we have a line that's graphed. Again, our line is going to be in the form y equals mx plus b. So we got to figure out b, right? B is where does our line cross over the y-axis? Well, it looks like it crosses over at -3. Then we need to find our slope, right? So we need to figure out we need to find 2 points that are on our line. Looks like there's a point there and a point there. And we go in and draw our slope triangle. Use a different color so it shows up. Right, so it looks like we have a positive slope because we're increasing from left to right. And it looks like we go from -3 to -1, which is an increase of 2. And we go from 0 over to 3, which is an increase of 3. Right. So it looks like my slope here is y equals 2 over 3x minus 3. And then we will just slide that answer right there on our line, or you can keep it there. Okay. And then for the bonus question, I'm not going to solve this one, but you can use distributive property or you can use box. Just make sure you distribute that to each of those terms, right? Do that multiple times. Okay. Your work can get kind of unorganized here, so make sure you keep it nice and neat. You can also use box method. That might actually be easier to use. Okay, box method might be easier to use here for this one, but there's that.